Good morning. I am here with Pastor Dmitry Bodyu, who was arrested by the Russian troops in March in the eastern Ukraine. And I am so glad that he is here with us. He's safe in Poland with his family. And we will talk about his life, his ministry, and how the Lord has led him throughout the years. So thank you so much, Dmitry, for being here with us. And could you tell us, how did the Lord call you to serve in Ukraine? Because I know that you were born in the Soviet Union, then your family moved to the US, and then the Lord called you back. So tell us the story.
Well, I grew up in a Christian family. My parents was Christian, my grandparents was Christian. As far as I know, I'm a Christian in the 5th generation. So Christianity, it's not new for me. And when we moved to US, we moved as religious refugees in the 80s, because at that time it was a lot of people moving to US from the Soviet Union. And I got married. Me and my wife, we went to Christ for the Nations. It's in Dallas, Texas, Bible school. And this school was very mission-oriented. And I went with some students a couple times on a missions field, and we came back to former Soviet Union and in 91, 92. And then we really feel the calling from God, to go into our own country and be a ministry and be a ministers there. And so we would travel a little bit to see what God wants from us in the former Soviet Union. And eventually God lead us into our own city. It was not our desire for sure, but it was just a hand of God. So we moved back to Melitopola, the place where I was born, my wife was born, and started working with the church that we left in the 80s when we moved to US. So we were thinking it's going to be just for a couple years, maybe, because a friend of mine who was pastoring the church, he said, I need to go to Bible school. Can you come and pastor the church when I'm gone? And I'm like, okay, it's not for long. So we came back and he went to Bible school. I pastored the church. When he came back, I stayed with him for another year, helped him to adjust back because we had a lot of new people came in. And then in 94, we went back to US for some time, and God spoke to me again that I have to be back. So we came back, and we've been there since 92 till now, 30 years of ministry in the Ukraine.
That's an amazing story. I can share your burden for the former Soviet countries, because also in the beginning of the 90s, God gave me the strong calling to preach the gospel in the former Soviet bloc in Ukraine, and especially in Moscow. I moved to Moscow in 1993, and I served there as a missionary for 7 months, living there among the Russians. So I also made multiple mission trips to Ukraine. So I think we share like similar burden. Of course, your burden is stronger because you spent 30 years of your life there and you were born there. And I know that after a while you moved to Crimea, and you pastored a church in Crimea. So how was your ministry in Crimea before 2014, before Russians came in?
Well, we have many churches that we started in the southeast part of Ukraine. And we started the church in Simferopol also, it's Crimea. And in a little bit, we have to change the pastor there for some reasons. And I decided to go there and help the church to recover, because I was director over the missions. So I was doing a lot of traveling and helping the churches and pastors. So I went up there thinking it's going to be not for a long time. But eventually, we stayed there for 8 years. Until 2014. We were thinking we're going to stay longer, but in 2014, when the Russians came into Crimea and took over, they asked us to leave because me and my wife, we are U.S. citizens. So they were not allowed for us to stay there. So we have to move to Melitopol again. So we've been moving to Melitopol so many times. I don't even know why this city got. But anyway, so we moved back. But we still have a church in Simferopol. It's a very strong church. Very good team of pastors that we have up there. They're still functioning and working. And even now, when all these things going on in the Ukraine, and for our city that is occupied right now, it's hard to bring humanitarian aid from the Ukrainian side. So our guys from Crimea, they bring food and medicine and take people out into Crimea part, and then people travel to Baltic states and go to Europe.
I see. So what has changed in the lives of believers in Crimea, after the Russians took over? Because they asked you to leave, most probably because they didn't want to have missionaries there. But what about the other Christians? How?
It was not easy, because when that thing was happening, people have different feelings about this. Some was happy because Crimea had always a lot of Russian-speaking people and people that are moved from Russia into the Crimea part of Ukraine. And so there was some people that were happy and some people that was sad. And we have a lot of people left, went to Ukraine or other countries. So we have some people disappeared from the church in 2014. But we had a lot of new people came in from the Siberia and north of Russia and all kinds of places, Christian people. They came into the church. So the church changed. New people came in and some people left. So it was not easy. It was not easy thing. But eventually everything is settled down and everything was okay and fine. And but now when all this thing happened in 2022, it's not easy now. The church, I can say the church split in I would not say in half, but there is a lot of people that are pro-Russians because they've been living there for such a long time and they hear all the propaganda and everything. We even have few families that left the church because of all the situation, because church start praying for the Ukraine and all this. And of course, in Crimea, you have to be very, very careful what you're saying and what you're doing and things like that. And it's sad, but it's true.
So you were forced basically to move out of Crimea, or gently asked with no choice. Yeah. Yes, yeah. And you moved back to Melitopol. And how was your ministry in Melitopol between 2014 and 2022?
A friend of mine who was pastor in the church in Melitopol, he in 2012 he moved out to U.S. So I was taking care of two churches, and I was overseeing a group of churches on the southeast part. And so it was okay for me because I knew Melitopol church. It was not so hard to travel back and forth and take care of two churches at the same time. It's only 240 kilometers in between. And but when I move in 2014, of course I have to start everything all over, and rebuilding the church, building a new team. But it was a good time, very good time. The church grew, and we did a lot of good stuff, had very good conferences for the leadership. use Melitopola church as a base, like a training base for the pastors in Ukraine and leaders in Ukraine, to strengthen them and help them to understand what the teamwork is in the church. And so it was a good time. A lot of youth, a lot of teenagers, good work.
So, and then 2022 came, February 24th, and
Yeah.
And you were, am I correct? You were in Melitopol when the war started.
Yes, I was in Poland in February, and I just came back from Poland ministering here, and came back to Ukraine and went to Odessa for a few days and ministered there, and came back to Melitopol on the 23rd afternoon. And on the 24th in the morning, we woke up because rockets came in and the Russians bombed our city. So that's when it started. And by the evening of 24, the Russians already took our city. So it was the first day we've been taken by the Russians.
And so what was the situation of Christians of your church when the Russians took over? Because that eventually led to your arrest.
Yeah, well, the first week was pretty rough because there was fightings going on. The Ukrainians came in the nighttime and fight the Russians, so it was going back and forth. And during the day, people were protesting on the streets, and we as Christians, with some other pastors from our city, from different denominations, we were praying in the center of a town. Every day by noon, we come together and we pray for our city, for our country, for president, for all this stuff, And but first week, it was a lot of the Russians. They start breaking stores and take some stuff out, and then the people follow. So it was the week of fighting and a huge robbery in our city. All the stores was empty, pharmacies, they were breaking windows, and it was crazy. So no gas by the end of the week, and no fuel, and people can fill up their cars or anything. So it's like apocalyptic time, everything's disappeared. So we were sitting, and we had a lot of people in the church because we have very thick walls in our church. So people came into the church. We had a basement where the children were staying. So first, like week and a half, almost 2 weeks, we have a lot of people in our church. We've been feeding them, cooking meals there, and help them stay there. And of course, we were traveling in the city with some brothers, buying food and medicine, trying to take to different people because, like I said, first 2 weeks was very rough. Mm. And then it's changed a little bit. The stores are still empty. Pharmacies the same way, no gas. But people start bringing groceries from the villages and small towns nearby and sell in the marketplace. So we had enough food, but the problem was you have to use only cash, and the banks are closed. At the ITM machines, you can only take like 3,000 hryvnias per person, and the lines was huge. I mean, you can go there and sign up to get the cash out of ITM machine, and you can be 1,837 in line, and you have to wait like 4 or 5 days to get it. So it was real bad. Not bad as like Mariupol and Kharkov, because they've been bombed real heavily. Our city, we had around 100 houses was damaged, and a few people were killed, but it was not so dramatic like in Mariupol and Kharkov and Sumy and Chernigov, places like that, and of course Kiev on the side of Bucha. So later on, they arrest our mayor because he was still working, and they took over all the major government buildings, but this government of our city was still working, taking care of the city and trying to restore, because first week we didn't have any water for like several days, and electricity, phone lines was down, internet was down because of bombs, the ruin, everything. So they were working to restore all this. But finally they arrest him because they saw that he is very influential. They arrest him for 5 days, and then they exchange him for some, I guess, Russian soldiers or somebody, and let him go into Zaporozhye. And after him, they arrest another 2 people, one woman that was, I guess she was leading the protesters, and one of our government official. And they just let him go, that government official, after, I think he was in prison for 42 days, something like that. Mm-hmm. We were praying for him, hoping that he will, stay still alive. And then on March 19, they arrest me. So I was one of the first that was arrested. But after that, they were arresting a lot of people. So, I mean, pretty much every day they were arresting someone, teachers and school principals, businessmen, politicians, people that have influence, they try to arrest. And of course, ex-military guys who was fighting in 2014, they were looking for these people. And I think there is some people that stay and work with Russians. I think they were giving them names and who those people were, so they can go and arrest them.
So could you tell us more about your arrest? Because we know it was very traumatic for you and your family, and a big unknown when it all happened.
Yeah. Well, they came in to our house on the March of 19. It was early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning. And we were having coffee with my wife, and she looked at the window, and there were soldiers jumping over the fence. So I knew, this is the time for me, I guess. So they came and they knocked at the door, and I went immediately and opened the door because I don't want them to break the door. And so they asked me to raise my hands and ask who's in the house. I told them it's me, my wife, and my kids. But my kids, they're adults, my son and his wife. And they said, "Oh, it's children in the house, so careful." So they came in, and when they noticed that the children is big, they said, "Oh, it's not children." I said, "Well, it's children. I mean, it's not little babies, but it's my children." So they took me into a kitchen for interrogation and collect all our phones and computers and everything. And my wife and kids, they were in another room. So they talked with me for like 30 minutes, I guess. And then they took me into their vehicles, and we went to the church. They searched the church also because they searched all my house, I guess looking for weapons or some, stuff that will tell, that I was doing something illegal. They did the same thing in the church, collect all the computers in the church, the church paperwork and stuff like that. And then they took me to prison. So I spent there, it was Saturday. I spent there all day waiting, what's going to happen. Then they came in next day for the interrogation. It was the first interrogation that I had on Sunday. And then a few more days I had interrogations. And after that, one guy was just coming in every day and talking with me. It was not interrogation anymore. It was just like a friendly talk, I guess. But there was a lot of things that they were asking. And at first they were saying that military guys have some issues with me. some serious issues that they want to kill me. And I said, well, I don't know anything about those issues because I'm not in the military, I'm not in the politics, I'm just a pastor in the church. But they didn't believe, so they ask and talk, and I mean, they were looking for something that is wrong with me. And of course, I'm pastor in the church. We have over 500 people in our church. It's quite a large crowd for our city. And I have some businesses in the city also, and I have a lot of people working for me. Almost 380 people work for me, and of course their families, and so it's quite a bit of influence in the city of 160,000 people. So plus I'm U.S. citizen, so. And when everything started, I have a lot of friends everywhere in different countries. So they were helping us, sending finances for food and medicine and the work there. And it was a big issue for Russian guys also. And they said, there's people from different countries supporting you, which is not right. And I said, well, it's nothing wrong if your friends is helping you. I mean, it's normal for all the normal countries. And they said it's illegal to get money from other countries for the church. I said it's not illegal in Ukraine. So they were looking for something, but looks like I didn't have anything illegal in the things I do. And some of the things they noticed about my life, they were thinking I'm just crazy, because they said, well, you have businesses, why you don't have your own house? You rent in a house. So, well, because it's not the goal, to have a house. Why? It's so strange. I said, well, that's a mentality of people who lives in ex-Soviet Union countries. The main goal in your life, it's have your house. I said, for the Western countries, it's a little bit different. You can travel, you can go there and here, you can rent the house. It's not a big issue. I mean, when the time comes, I'll get the house. But for right now, I don't know where I'm going to be. So another thing, they said, they saw some of my financial books on my computer and stuff like that. And they said, who's those people you've been, because there were names and this some money numbers. Is this people, they own you money? I said, no, it's just the people I give money to. You giving money to people. I said, well, the main purpose of my business is just to support the work that we do here in Ukraine. Support churches, support pastors, some families. So this is the people that we're supporting on a monthly basis. And they couldn't understand this. They're like, so you're giving money away? It's not the money that people own you? I said, no. That's what we give away from our companies. This is strange. You don't have a house. You give money away. So they couldn't get it, And I said, well, that's what you call Christianity. It's a different priorities. It's different goals. We give money away more than we keep for ourselves. And it's for them, it's real hard to get this point of view. So they were thinking I was supporting some protesters and some illegal things in the city and stuff like that. So I said no. So they were investigating all this, and finally they on the 8th day that I was in prison, in the evening they came into my cell and say, okay, now you can go home. And I'm like, well, it's unexpected. And they said, well, it was unexpected for us too, but someone to let you go. So they let me go, and they took me home. And I can say, they were very careful with me. They never touched me or anything. They were not aggressive. When they talk with me and things like that. compared to other guys that was in prison, because I can hear interrogation and they've been beating them up pretty heavily. Not the same guys that interrogate me, it was some other guys, probably from military, but those guys were from secret services and counter spy department that work with me. So that's how I get out. And when they were telling me several times that the military guys have some issues with me and they really want to kill me, at first I was thinking they were joking, you know, or using this information just for interrogation. But later on, I found out it was not just empty threat, you know, it was the real stuff. And when we decided to move out and they asked how you're going to go, I told, because they were coming to my house pretty much every day, talking with me and want me to work with them and stuff like that. So I knew that it's not going to be a easy way out from all this situation, you know. So, and of course that they were saying that military have some issues with me. It's like, okay, if they have issues with me now, anything can change. You know, they can go through rotation or something like that and I'll be in trouble again. If I'm going to go to prison for the second time, I don't think I will get out that easy. And so we decided with the church leadership and my family, we decided that I have to go. It's going to be easy for my family and the church also, because they were controlling church. I mean, they were coming to church for services and we have to give them checklist for everything we do at the service and stuff like that. So we decided to leave. And when I start talking with them about going out, they said, don't go to Ukrainian side because you will not cross that war line. I said, why? I mean, I'm just going to try. And they said, no, you don't want to try because it's a military guys there. They know who you are. They're waiting for you. You're not gonna cross the line. Okay. So I got the point. And they said, the only way you can go through Russia. So that's how we went out, through Crimea and then up to Moscow, the Baltic states. But when we were crossing that border between Ukraine and Russia, now it's kind of Russian territory, as they say. They hold us there for like 8 hours, interrogating. It was very rough. I thought I will go to prison for the second time. But finally, you know, we prayed and we were just waiting. They took me in and out, maybe 6 times. The whole family were interrogating my kids and my wife separately, and it was just crazy. So finally, they let us go. So we went to Simferopol in Crimea. We stayed for couple nights there just to rest before we travel and fellowship with people from the church. And then we drove all the way to Baltic states and up to Warsaw. So it took us 7 days from Melitopol to Warsaw, all the way around, 3,500 kilometers. We traveled in 2 cars because I have my daughter with her husband and a grandchild and their son, and in their car, and in my car, my youngest son with his wife. So, but we're here now.
We are so thankful for that, because we heard about your arrest, and many Christians in Poland were praying for you and your family. And so it's an answer to prayers that you are safe here with your family. But when you were in prison, you know, your family had no contact with you. How was it for your wife, for your children when you were in prison? How was their lives during these 8 days?
Well, those guys, they came into my house. They arrested me Saturday morning. they came into my house on Monday, and they tell my wife that I'm okay, I'm alive, you don't have to worry about me, so everything fine. But they would not answer any questions, or just tell them that I'm okay. That's all. And the second time they came to talk with my wife, I think it was Friday before they let me out. They let me out on Saturday night. So they knew some information, not a whole lot. And the way they talk, it's raise more questions than give answers, So, of course, they were afraid because, they don't know what's going to happen. Plus, a lot of people were calling them and telling them, you need to get out because they can use you as a way of, interrogating me and things like that. So they were thinking, should we leave or should we stay? So there was a lot of things going on through their minds. Same thing with me, when I was in prison. I had no fear or anything. I was very peaceful, and God was filling me up with his peace and joy, even, despite of the place I was. And so only thing I was thinking about that how the thing's gonna go, because I have no idea, how long I'm gonna be there, what will happen next, what they want from me, and things like that. So it's just, I think the unknown, it's more of a problem than what you're going through.
Yeah. So you mentioned that many other people, influential people, were arrested after your arrest. Have you heard about any pastors or Christian leaders or influential Christians who got arrested by the Russians on the occupied territories?
Well, I didn't hear anything about. No, in our city, it was only me. The first days there's another church in our city. They came into the pastor's house and interrogated him and his family and took him to the church. So it was very, very stressful for them. They did not arrest him, but it was very rough interrogation, I can say. And after that, he left. So I think it's only me who was arrested in our city. The other cities, I have no information about the ministers or pastors. I think there were some, but I don't know the whole lot. In 2014, it was a lot of craziness was going on in Donetsk and Lugansk area concerning churches. And we knew if something like that happened, the church is going to be in the top list, for arrest. And because they think that, especially the Protestant churches, they are full of CIA and FBI agents and things like that.
So you mentioned that in your church, Russians came in to services, and they asked checklists from you, and so it seems they are starting to control the churches. So how is this situation right now in Melitopola and other places where the Russians control?
Well, see, in our city, there is some churches that disclose, but most of the churches are still functioning. We are kind of in a winter mood, trying to survive. We're not doing a whole lot of stuff, but we are staying alive, ministering to the people. We have very good pastoral team in our church. And we have church meetings every Sunday during the week. We have prayer meetings, and we have up to 300 people comes for services, and some from other churches that is located on the far away from center because our church is right in the middle of the town, so people can come in. And there's other churches that is still functioning. Of course, people are leaving more and more and more because it's really hard to stay in the city that is occupied and feel yourself good, especially if you're pro-Ukrainian. If you're pro-Russian, it's, you're okay. But not in, most of the people are pro-Ukrainian, so it's hard for them to stay. And because they're trying to change everything. They're trying to change bank system, get rubles in. They're trying to change educational system and all the signs that we have in the city. They put up a red flag in the center of the city, like with the Soviet flag, with hammer and sickle. And it's just like back in the USSR. I mean, the spirit is pretty heavy. So I think the church is needed in the situation like that, to minister to the people, to build their hope and faith in Christ, because without this, it's very hard, especially for Christian people. And we have teams in the city that's still evangelizing. They go out and preaching the gospel and praying with people. So far we're okay. I mean, they're not touching the church or anything. So they investigate us as a church, as ministers, and they allowed us to function. So, which is good. We don't know how the thing's going to be later, but for right now, we're okay.
So what do you expect if the Russians, hopefully it will not happen, but if the Russians take control over those territories for a longer time, and if they establish their rule, do you think it will affect evangelical Christians, Ukrainian evangelical Christians?
I think so. I think most of the people will leave the city. They're not going to stay there, because when you live in a free country, and you've been allowed to share your heart, your thoughts, and just travel, and it's hard to change now. If you know what the freedom is, it's hard to be under the pressure again. So I think most of the people will leave. I don't know how they're going to survive on the territories with very low account of people, how they're going to take care of the territory. I don't think the people from Russia will move there, because it's a different situation than Crimea, because in Crimea it was a totally different thing. But I don't think people will move from Russia to Ukrainian territories, especially because it's going to be dangerous. It's real hard to hold this large strip of land in the Ukraine that is almost like 800 kilometers long and not so wide. It's you need to have a huge army to hold this for a long time. So I don't know how they're going to do that, knowing the situation that is right now in the Ukraine. So one thing we're praying about, when all this thing over, that they can leave our city peacefully without fighting and destroying the city.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we're praying about.
We will join you in this prayer. But you also mentioned that, Protestants, may be targeted by Russians because they view them as FBI agents or CIA agents. So from our perspective, it seems that once the Russians take control and establish their government, they may allow some freedom for churches, but they will definitely do whatever they can to cut the ties, especially of the evangelical churches, with the West.
Yeah.
In this way, they would try to, weaken them. So how do you view this? How do you view hopefully it will not happen, but if it happens, how do you view the possible cooperation, or how would the churches, evangelical churches, could function under the Russian rule in Ukraine?
I don't know, because Russia is changing right now also, you know, like in 2014, the Russian Federation was pretty strong country with a lot of finances and very little conflict in Crimea and Donbass, you know, the Donetsk, Lugansk area. But now it's a totally different thing. The whole world hates Russian Federation. And looks like the war, they're losing the war in Ukraine. Ukraine getting more stronger, yet it losing their cities and people leaving out from the Ukraine, but Ukraine is getting stronger and stronger. So right now it's different, and Russia is going back fast, you know, going back into Soviet mentality. So I think we don't know how the thing's going to happen, but if something happened, like you say, I think it's going to be very tough for churches to survive. It's not going to be like in 2014. It's going to be like in 1960s, 70s, when the government, Soviet government, was controlling churches, arresting people, killing people, and the church was surviving as much as they can, you know. So I think it's going to be similar to that. And of course, with the Soviet mentality now, Russian mentality, which is equal for me, they will not allow or they will not be tolerant to the people that have different point of view. Mm-hmm. And Christians have different point of view. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about just the way you see human life, the way you see people and their freedom and things like that. And I don't think they will tolerate this, because there's no second point of view in Russia. Mm. If you're not thinking the same way, you're going out. Mm. So I don't know how those two things can blend. I think it's like a water and oil. You will never blend these things together. Christianity and communism, you know, it looks like the Russia going back to communism real fast. Mm-hmm. So I hope it will not happen. Mm-hmm. And I pray for that Ukraine will be free. Yeah. All the territories of Ukraine will be free. And that's what the Ukrainian government is saying. So they will not allow for Russia to keep any territory. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, it's also our prayer, and then we share your point of view. We also think that, like, the mentality of the Soviet Union, the Soviet mentality is there, and there will be no. That's how we view it from here, from Poland, our mission. You know, that there won't be any tolerance for you know, people thinking in different ways, you know, and not agreeing with the government, and so it's going to be tough for evangelical Christians, but let's hope and pray that it will not happen, then Ukraine will be free. And one day, maybe even Russia, you know, that we will go back there as missionaries and we will preach the gospel, because Christ died for that nation as well.
Yeah.
And lastly, could you share about your current ministry to Ukrainians, to your people? Because you are now in Poland, but we know that you continue your ministry in Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, what we do right now, pretty much the same thing we've been doing for the last 2 months. Only difference is I'm not in Ukraine anymore, but we're still coordinating people in the Ukrainian churches. And we're coordinating everybody who's leaving from Melitopola, from the occupied territory. We're helping people when they leave. You know, we help them financially. We help them to show them the ways. You know, there's some people that come and take them out if they don't have transportation. And we have some friends in Latvia, in different cities and different countries that our people can stay overnight and have some hot meals on the way to their locations where they decided to go. So just a lot of help. And there's volunteers that go into Melitopola and back from the Ukrainian territory. We help them with fuel and things, they needed. And so it's not easy, but it takes a lot of finances sometimes, because not everybody have money to travel, especially now after 2 months, there's no jobs, nothing. And so we help people. And right now tomorrow we're going to go to Lithuania. We find the bus that we're going to purchase. And we have our guys in the Western Ukraine that going to take this bus and travel back and forth from the border between Ukraine and Poland and take some stuff to Zaporozhye and Dnieper, close to where we are. And we have some needs, the people asking for like one-time use dishes, because like churches in Dnieper, they're receiving a lot of refugees that coming from those directions. It's not that much now, but they're still coming. So they need dishes to feed those people because there's no time to wash. Sometimes they, give like 300 meals to 500 meals a day between those two churches to those people. And we have some territorial soldiers that protecting, they asking for clothes because it's summertime now. They ask for t-shirts and baseball hats and some socks and underwear and some pants, because, just things like that for their use and their service. I'm sorry. We have calls pretty much every day, people asking for different things. So we're trying to be in here to work with Ukrainians that are in Poland right now, and Ukrainians that in the West Ukraine, and Ukrainians that are still in occupied territory, by coordinating all this talking and ministering to the people and, things like that.
So in closing, thank you for sharing your heart. And if you were to like address evangelical community all over the world concerning Ukraine and the situation there, what would you ask them to do? How would you ask them to get involved?
Well, first of all, I think we all need to pray, because it's not only about Ukraine, it's about the whole world, because the whole world is involved with what's going on in Ukraine, especially the US and Europe, mostly. And we have to pray, we have to help as, any way we can. And when you're helping, try to work with people that because sometimes people giving help, some finances or something, humanitarian aid to the people they don't know, and all these things disappear. So you need to be careful with your things, the goodness, because sometimes we trust too much. But when the war going on, there's a lot of corruption and a lot of people that making money on the stuff like that. So you need to be careful. You need to stay in touch with people that and see what they do and stuff like that. The third thing, what I want to say, it's we need to be ready for the time when the war is finished. And it's going to be a lot of work in Ukraine, and I think in Russia also, and Belarus and some other republics. It's going to be wide open field for the gospel. And when we're going to go back and work there, we need to bring people Christ, not the programs or something denominational stuff, some concerts and things like that, which is not bad, to have a concert. But people, but they need Christ. They need the gospel that is Christ-centered gospel. So we need to get ready for the restoration of Ukraine, not only rebuilding the buildings and roads, but we need to get ready for the restoration of churches and be able to receive many new believers into the church. Because right now there's a lot of ministers leaving the Ukraine and other countries. And I'm afraid that when the time comes, we will not have enough pastors and ministers to help people. So that's what I'm praying for and hoping that we'll be able and we'll be ready, because we've been praying for revival for a long time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we think the revival comes the way we think it's supposed to come. But like in 1991, when the Soviet Union fell apart, yeah, it was so much unknown in the future, but revival came. And we were not ready for it. We really didn't know what to do with people. There were so many people coming to churches, we don't know what to do with them. So I really hope this time we'll be ready. And the ministers will come back and help people there. So that's my thoughts for...
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I agree wholeheartedly with what you shared. And, you know, when this war started, my old calling, you know, to be a missionary in Russia and Ukraine, like revived. So I told the Lord, you know, if you want me to go back to Moscow and I hear your call, I am packing and I'm going. So I share your heart, and that's the way to go. That's the way to go. So thank you so much, Dmitry, for committing your time. And I hope this interview will touch many people. You've shared a lot of very important information. You've shared your heart, and our prayers are with you. We also want to support your ministry in any way we can. So may the Lord bless you, bless your family, bless your church in Melitopol, and may the Lord bless Ukraine, and also in the future Russia, because they need the gospel. Christ died for all of them.
Yes,
we are to be His instruments to bring the Christ-centered gospel to them. I agree with that. Thank you so much. God bless you, dear brother.
Yeah, God bless you too, brother. Thank you. Bye-bye.